Diablo 3 Gameplay and Auction House panel. Your panelists are Jay Wilson, Jason Bender, Wyatt Cheng, Andrew Chambers, and Chris Haga.
I love you too, faceless member. I actually can see your face. Oh, it's Pinto. Hi, Pinto. What's up, Blizzcon? How you doing? You guys ready to talk about some Diablo? Okay. So I have to tell you, the Endless Forces of Hell, they got some plans for you guys. But I have to say, looking around the room, I think you can take them. I think so. So what we're going to talk to you today is the endless amounts of items, class tuning, abilities, and a whole bunch of stuff about how you can take on those forces of hell. So our panelists here today are myself, Jay, I work on Diablo, Jason Bender, Senior Game Designer, Andrew Chambers, Senior Game Designer, Wyatt Ching, Senior Technical Game Designer, and Chris Haga, Technical Artist. So I'm going to go ahead and let Bender get started.
Thank you, Jay. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to talk about achievements today a little bit. And you can get achievements in a number of ways. One of those ways is coming to BlizzCon. So congratulations, you got your virtual achievement. So, you know, not all achievements involve you going to LAX and all that jazz. Some of them are a little easier to get. Normally you might be playing through and you kill the Skeleton King. You can get an achievement for that. It allows you to track your progress as you're going through the game, feel good about what you've done, you know, review it. Some of it's a little more crazy. Extreme behavior. We consider it extreme to get a level 60 hardcore character because it's not easy. So, you know, if you do things that are a little tougher in the game, you're going to get achievements for that. And then, of course, absurd shenanigans, because we all love shenanigans. Our German players know about this. They play D2 without putting any armor on. That's pretty absurd. In this case, it might be for beating every boss by punching it in the face without holding a weapon. So that would be something that might get you an achievement. But, you know, what's the point beyond that? They're fun to collect, they let you track your accomplishments, but when you get achievements, they also unlock components for your banner. So your banner is sort of a visual representation of what you've done in the game, of all your accomplishments. The more you achieve, the more components for your banner you unlock. For example, in PvP, you might open some crests. Just playing through the game normally and getting achievements by quantity will extend this pennant, so it gets more stuff on it as you play. Other achievements can change the cloth, the sigil, the accents. And then, of course, if you play a lot of hardcore, the base of your banner will get bigger. And after a while, it can all add up to something pretty cool. So now, these banners are not just pretty, although they are pretty. They also allow you, in co-op, to teleport directly to your friends. So if they're out running around, you don't know where they are, you went back to town to craft something or buy from a vendor, you can just click on their banner and then teleport directly to them. So that's pretty useful. Plus, that's a good way of ensuring that people see your cool banner. That's not it, though. There's some other elements we're adding to make gameplay a little more convenient for you. For example, the Stone of Recall. So the Stone of Recall is an endless use item. You can use it as many times as you want to get yourself back to town from the wilderness. So here we are, like, you know, casting it. Takes about 10 seconds. Can be interrupted by monsters. Let's hope that guy up there on the left doesn't interrupt us. So you get back to town, and it leaves this blue portal thing behind. And that allows you to go back to where you came from. Only you can use it. Your friends can't use it, but they can get to you with your banner, so that's no big deal. We're not sure what to call this thing, maybe like Village Door or something. If you can think of something, let us know. Also, we have the Cauldron of Jordan. So the Cauldron of Jordan allows you to sell stuff right out of your inventory. So if you want to clear up your inventory, you want some gold, you can sell as many things as you want right out of your bag. Similarly, the Cube of the Nephilim allows you to pick items in your bag and convert them to crafting components. So you can, you know, you got some stuff in your bag, you like it, maybe you replaced your gear, you don't want to go back to town, just yet, you can use the cube of the Nephilim to convert them into crafting materials and craft all kinds of cool stuff.
Thanks, Jason. Holy moly, there's a lot of you guys out there. How you doing? All right, I'm going to talk about crafting for a bit, but crafting is all about making items, or making your existing items, even more awesome. So I wanted to take a step back and look at the way that items were handled in Diablo 2 and what their item life cycle was. You kind of got items from two different sources in Diablo 2. You could buy it from a vendor, or you could do what I've done here, kill Andariel and get awesome Trident. Once I've picked up that item, I'm probably going to, say, wear it for a while, but then it's going to get upgraded, and I can trade it to my friend for some gold, maybe, if I'm lucky, or I can sell it to Chassis here for some gold. What do I do with that gold? Well, you could gamble it with Geed. Geed allowed you to buy these unidentified items for like crazy amounts of gold or crazy little amounts of gold, and then you identified them and found out what it was. The system is actually really cool because it gave you access to some super powerful items, but a lot of people had a really negative experience when they first tried it out, so they never really went back and kept on doing it again and again and again. So you just end up hoarding all of your gold, and that's not really a life cycle. That's just, you know, a pub with no beer. And that makes Andrew really, really sad. So what are some of the things that we're doing in Diablo 3 to make this item life cycle better? First off, I want to talk about the Mystic. The Mystic is where you go if you want to enhance your items. She can take any item that you have, like your chest piece or your bracers, and she can add an enhancement to it. The enhancements are a wide array of things, like Gold Find or Magic Find, but also increase core stats. There's also a whole bunch of things that you can do for, like, that's class related. So for example here, it increases hatred regeneration by 0.83 per second on a one-handed weapon. The interesting thing about enhancements in Diablo 3 as opposed to WoW is they're actually random. So that 0.83 per second, that actually has a chance, like the bottom line for that is 0.66 per second. So you can see up here I've enhanced my Keen Axe of Storms with hatred regen, and I've gotten the bottom. It's like 0.66 per second. I can reapply that enhancement and have a chance of actually making it better and making it get to the top end of that range. The awesome thing about that is, as you're leveling up, you know, you apply the enhancement, and that's good enough, and it's maybe like middle range. But at the end game, by applying these enhancements, you can get like really super powerful enhancements on your items that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to get by investing time and resources into that. And of course, she really facilitates aberrant builds. What is that? That is a demon hunter running around with a one-handed axe and a shield. Who the hell thought of that? We did, because it's awesome, you know? Like, you don't always have to want to run around and play with ranged weapons. Maybe you just want to, like, spam Fan of Knives and Chakram and Vault everywhere and that sort of stuff. And the Mystic can allow you to do that. Ordinarily, you wouldn't be able to get hatred regen on a one-handed axe. But, hey, she lets you do it because she's kind of cool. And she levels up. She has 10 levels. Awesome artwork. We have amazing artists, by the way. Have you noticed? Yeah. She levels up. She has 10 levels. Every time she levels up, she gets more powerful enhancements. And she uses pages of training to level up, which you can get from killing monsters randomly in the world. The next guy I want to talk about is the Jeweler. This guy's Covetous Shen. He's a little bit shady, but if you have anything gem-related, he's the guy to go to. So what can he do? He can combine your gems. In the game, you have like 14 different ranks of gems. Gems can be put in sockets of your items, and they imbue extra properties. So like, you know, you want more experience, you can put a ruby in your helm socket, and that gives you plus X% experience for every kill that you make. The more powerful ones, of course, like are only found and able to be combined, so you're going to have to level him up to get access to those. He can also add sockets to items. This is great. Like, say I'm playing a barb and I'm like really loving precision and frenzy and kicking butt that way. and I get this item, and it's got tons of precision, or sorry, tons of like fury regeneration on it, but I need precision. So I add a socket to it, and then I can put the gem in there, which has the plus precision attribute. He also removes gems from items. This is actually, it's actually pretty cool. Let me give you an example here. Say you're like leveling up, you hit level 60, you've been having that plus experience gem in your helm the entire time, but you're level 60 now. You don't need experience. So you go to this guy, you have him take the gem out, you put the plus 20% life in there, because in Inferno you're going to need it. And then you can send that plus experience gem to your ult and then help level him up faster. Speaking of leveling up, the jeweler also levels up. As he levels up, he gets the ability to combine more powerful gems, higher ranks. He also uses pages of training to level up. So when you're like improving your like artisans, you're gonna have to kind of pick and choose which ones you want to focus on. Fortunately, they're account based, so you know you level up your barb to level 60 and you focus on the blacksmith the entire time. When the demon hunter, you level in, you jump in, and right there and then the blacksmith is already like level 10, and your mystic, you know, you can level her up separately. Talking about the blacksmith, we've spoken a lot about him already. He can forge items and craft, you know, things for you. What we haven't spoken about is he can actually craft legendary and unique set items for you. So these are things that you find in, say, normal difficulty. So here he's like making the Sanity's Edge. It's a legendary two-handed mighty weapon. This has actually come from a plan that you found when you were killing a monster. You took that plan to your blacksmith, you taught it to him, and now you can make that again and again and again. He can also make the unique set items. Now, this is a normal difficulty unique set. You're gonna, you know, find this in the world when you're playing normal. The tricky thing about Diablo is that these items can drop from anything. It's not like you can pick one boss and just go and farm that for your set. So we figured, hey, let's, you know, make it a little bit easier for you guys. And once you get this plan, you can then craft every item in this set to get the set bonus. So here I've crafted Born's Pauldrons, the shoulder pieces, and his Seething Rage, the one-handed sword. I've crafted those so I can wear them and get the set bonus. Makes it way easier. I mean, in Inferno, you're still going to be like farming unique sets and that sort of stuff, but this is just a really great way of ensuring that as you're progressing through the game, you can still get the cool factor out of these things. So how does the Diablo 3 item lifecycle look with all those added features? Well, when an item's born, it can come from a vendor or from a loot drop. It can also come from crafting, or of course from the auction house. So what do I do with it? I can wear it. Probably definitely going to wear it if I buy it off the auction house. When I'm done with it, I can sell it. That gives me gold for repairs or for crafting or forging more gear. I can salvage it, and I can actually sell those salvage components on the auction house. I can use them to enhance my existing items. I can put it on the auction house directly, make gold, make money. Who doesn't like that? Or I can trade it. I can help twink out my characters, or I can, you know, give it to my friend and be nice. It's not my style, but, you know, I twink. So what's an example of that? So say I'm playing through the game, and I get a loot drop. I don't really need it, it's not an upgrade, so I decide to salvage it. Salvages into some components that I put for sale up on the auction house. Someone buys that, win, rock and roll, I made some gold. I keep on playing for a while, and then next week I go and like look on the auction house and see a wicked one-handed axe that's just like perfect for me. I decide to buy that from the auction house. I didn't know that that was actually crafted from the same salvage components that I sold on the auction house a week earlier. That's a life cycle, and that makes Andrew happy. And of course, we have some awesome item artwork that we just wanted to show off. It didn't fit in anywhere else, but these are all the awesome items that you're going to be doing and playing with. Thanks. So who likes PvP?
I like PvP.
No. You like PvP? That wasn't loud enough. Who likes PvP? Blizzcon high five for PvP. I just high five Blizzcon. It's kind of awesome. Yeah.
Well done, sir.
So I guess I better talk about PvP now. As a lot of you might know, last year we had Arena on the floor. This year, playable, we have Team Deathmatch. We got a lot of awesome feedback from you guys, from the community, from last year's showing at the arena, and one of the dominant forms of feedback that we got was that sitting around and waiting while my friends kill each other really isn't fun. So we're introducing Team Deathmatch. Team Deathmatch really solves that problem. You die, you're back in 3 seconds. You're back in the fight, you're fighting, you're able to like play with your character more, you're able to explore more. There's not the intimidation factor in Team Deathmatch either of like, wow, am I gonna let my like arena team down by coming in with this crazy magic, you know, wizard build that only spawns like mirror images and that's all I do? No, it's totally cool. So Team Deathmatch, the game is 10 minutes games. There's 2 teams, red and blue. At the end of the game, the team with the most kills wins. There's definitely no skill swapping during games. There's also no item swapping during games. We want there to be like still some tactical advantage to understanding, hey, that barb over there is running up and like stunning like the heck out of me the entire time. I need to know that the entire 10 minutes of the game so I can actually effectively deal with that and respond. It's definitely going to be 4v4. Last year it was 3v3, stepped it up. 4v4 is way more fun for responsiveness and the interactivity. You're definitely going to be using your PvE character. There was some confusion about this, but you're definitely going to be like leveling up to 60, taking your character, your wizard or your witch doctor that you've been focusing on and getting to Inferno in, bringing them into PvP, and then experiencing them in PvP and seeing how they play out. And hey, go play it. We have it on the showroom floor. You're our community. We make these games for you. We love your feedback. It is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to talk about the auction house. I hope you guys like UI because there's a wall of it coming at you. All right, so why an auction house? Well, one of the major things and reasons that we decided to do an auction house is because trading is a big focus of the Diablo games. So some of you might know that you get loot in Diablo games and it's kind of a big deal. That loot is randomized. The Diablo system is pretty unique in that everything that drops is got some kind of random element if it's something that you wear on your body. And any monster could drop any item in the world. You don't have to go to a particular monster and do that. But because of that, there's actually really, really low odds that you get the exact thing you want. Even if you get the exact thing you want, the chances that it actually has the best stats that you could possibly get on that item is pretty much, it's almost impossible. And that's really by design. Because Diablo's always been a social game in the sense that you play with and trade with other players. So trading is really the best way to get the best items in the game, and that's always been the case for all the Diablo games. We've focused really heavily on the trading aspect. So given that, you'd think that the previous games would have awesome systems for trading, and if you think that, you'd be wrong. So in Diablo 2, there were a bunch of ways you could trade. There was an in-game interface where you could kind of put items up and you'd stick your item up and somebody else, and you'd say, well, what do you got? And hopefully it had something good that you wanted. You could throw items on the ground and pray. I wouldn't recommend that. You could go up and post in the chat channels or forums, hoping that someone is listening who has the thing you want or wants to buy the thing you have. It's pretty inefficient, and it makes the chat channels not really very chatty. And then you could also go to like third-party websites and buy things with real money. That works fine, except that maybe the transaction wouldn't work, maybe you get ripped off, maybe someone would steal your account. None of those were really great experiences, and we felt that we could do a lot better. So we focused on an auction house because it's really a very well-known, convenient, secure, easy way for people to trade. There's things like the WoW auction house, there's eBay. People understand an auction house, they understand how it works and how to interact with it. So we made the decision to allow players to trade in Diablo 3 the same way that they traded in Diablo 2, with gold or real money. So we're going to let you pretty much trade almost anything in the auction house. A wearable item, gold, stackable components like crafting items and things like that. So, and this is one of the most important points. We want you to be able to participate for free if you go into the real money auction house. A lot of people have said to us, I don't necessarily have a problem with, the real money or not. I just don't want to open up my wallet. I don't want to give you a credit card. And you know what? That's fine. You don't have to, and I'm going to explain how. This is Timmy the Demon Hunter. Why is he Timmy? Because it amuses me to call a Demon Hunter Timmy. So Timmy needs a new bow. That'd be nice. That bow would be pretty awesome. Venom Husk. Got a lot of blue little statty things on there. We like those. So he goes off in the world seeking his fortune. Oh, does he find it? Nope. Instead, he finds this thing. Wow. 566 DPS, two-hander. Not for him. If he had a barbarian or a barbarian friend, that'd be a pretty good item, but, well, we're going to pretend that Timmy doesn't have any friends because he named his Demon Hunter Timmy. I mean, come on. But he's still happy. He got this really awesome thing, but he wants his Venom Husk. So he's going to go up on the auction house, and he's going to post this up, and he's going to post it up on the Real Money auction house. Now, the important thing is here, he can do this for free, because every week we're going to allow people to have a small number of free listings. And one of the reasons for that is we want you to be able to generate some income and get a balance without actually having to spend any money. So he puts his Overfiend up there. It sells. Bong. $7.50 in his account. Now, he could have output that to a PayPal account and made $7.50 playing Diablo, which is pretty awesome. Or he can do what he did, which is put it directly into his e-balance, and now he can use that to go back on the auction house and buy things and post more auctions. So Timmy is happy. He goes up, he finds his Venom Husk, $5. Bam. Purchased. Sent to his character, and equipped. Check him out. So on top of being able to participate in that way, we also are going to add a lot of features. Some of you are in the beta and you've managed to play with the gold auction house, and you've probably noticed that it's not really as fully featured as we'd like. So we are adding a bunch of new features. The first one is a smart search feature. And basically what this does is it takes any character that you want, it'll look at the character and say, okay, you seem to be a barbarian who likes a lot of crit. So we're going to point you at items that do that. And then you can kind of funnel the results and say, these are all the items I want, but I really want precision, I really want lifesteal, so just show me the ones that have those affixes on them. So another thing we've done is we're going to add an advanced search, which really is kind of a bigger version of the smart search. It lets you basically just set all kinds of parameters, pretty much anything that you can literally specify the exact item stats that you want to see. And features like this are really important because the Diablo item system is not filled with a lot of named items that are easy to search for. You're really going to be searching more for stats. So next, we are going to let you sell stackable items. It's currently not supported, but it will. That's gold, gems, crafting dies, tomes, books, all those types of things. Almost everything that is worth selling, pretty much everything that's worth selling, we're going to allow you to sell in the auction house. All right.
Let's talk about game tuning for a little while. We're getting ready to finalize a lot of the game components, particularly the difficulty in the classes and the monsters. We're making a lot of improvements to the monsters. I'm going to be talking a lot about changes that we've made since the beta, as well as changes that we've made since last year's Blizzcon. For those of you who don't know, a lot of the content for killing monsters in Diablo is based around rares and champions, and they have magical properties like Electrified or Plagued, Teleporter, Desecrator. We have a couple of new affixes that we've been putting into the game over the last few weeks. One of those new ones is actually on display in the video over here. It's called Mortar. Mortar is, the monster has the ability to lob these grenades. We felt like a lot of the affixes that are currently in there penalize melee much more than ranged, things like Electrified and Plagued. So Mortar actually shoots grenades a minimum distance. So if you're, let me go back on that. If you're a melee character, the grenades will actually fly right over your head. Moving on to some passive skills, we're going to talk about the classes. A lot of the focus has been on making passives good. We've had feedback that some of the passives are interesting, but some of them aren't so interesting. Some of the classes don't all seem to have equally interesting number of passives. Here's one of the new passives that we've got for the Barbarian. One of the things about passives is they actually serve a number of purposes. Some people want passives that support specific builds. Some people want passives that introduce cool new visual elements. In this case, we felt that it was important for a Barbarian to be able to have a defensive build option And we also felt that it might be instructional for players who aren't sure if a barbarian could be built in a tanky sort of way. So we have this new passive, Nerves of Steel, to help support that playstyle. Some of our other passives, this one's on the Witch Doctor, Fetish Sycophants. It summons one of the little fetish helpers to fight along your side. And this happens anytime you cast a physical skill. It's things like Poison Dart or Plague of Toads, 3% chance in every cast. So that's a really popular passive internally as well. Another passive I have here is Combination Strike. So if you guys remember the Spirit Generators, this one's a monk skill. In the past, we've called them combo skills. Combo skills, Spirit Generators, sort of interchangeable. In this case, if you use multiple different Spirit Generators together, you get a DPS increase. And the more Spirit Generators you combine together, the larger the increase. I'm going to go through some of the classes now and talk about them. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Synergy. So this is an interesting thing that's come up over the last few months as we've been tuning passives, is the situation where you have too much synergy can actually be bad. So the example that we have on the board, up on the PowerPoint, is counterattack. Whenever you dodge, you automatically damage your attacker. Sixth Sense, which gives you increased chance to dodge, and Evasive, which gives you an increased chance to dodge every time you critical strike. Each one of these passives is pretty cool on its own. But when you put them all together, we felt like it was actually taking away build diversity rather than increasing it. Because as soon as you took one passive, you had a synergistic advantage for taking a second one, and then the third one. And if we give you 3 passives to choose from out of 15, we're actually pigeonholing players rather than allowing them to explore. So we've been seeking out these sorts of overly synergistic passives and removing them. Talk about the Barbarian. So for those of you who've played the Barbarian in the beta, Barbarian we feel like is in a pretty good place. He's fun, he's visceral, he's doing a lot of things that we want to do. A couple specific areas that we wanted to target. One was Fury Generation. He has a couple of Fury Generator skills, and we felt like his small, spammable generators weren't paying off as well as his big generators. So for example, players were using Leap Attack, Ground Stomp, Warcry, and skipping some of the Fury Generators like Cleave and Frenzy and Bash. So we've kind of adjusted those numbers a little bit to try and provide a better balance there. Another area that we've been looking at is survivability. You didn't see it so much during the level 1 to 12 game, but as you started to get into higher difficulties, Nightmare, Hell, Inferno, we really found that Barbarians were having trouble staying in melee. The Barbarians need to be in melee range to do damage, and without the survivability, they just weren't able to do that. So we've been looking at survivability, like I said, the passive earlier on. We've been also looking at the Barbarians' base stats, and just looking to kind of make them a little tougher overall. The Wizard, also in a good place. For those of you, again, who've been following along, we have a set of skills that were called academic skills. We've renamed those to signature skills. It's the same idea. Basically, as you level up, the skills become cheaper. Eventually, they become free. We really like how that's playing out. Overall, the Wizard's feeling pretty good. One of the areas that is a concern for us is whether or not it is worthwhile to use a signature spell when you're out of arcane power, and whether or not it's worth using a non-signature spell to spend your arcane power. So we've been tweaking those numbers to make sure players feel like they actually have different reasons to use different spells. And finally, one of the major changes that we've been making is all of the Wizard and Witch Doctor spells have been converted over to do % weapon damage. A major reason for this is we really felt that the casters needed to value their weapon more. People were finding weapons and looking at it and saying, well, I don't really care about the stats on this sword because my skills don't use it. So it's all based on weapon damage. One of the questions we get all the time is, well, then should my Wizard just use a giant two-handed mace? Because I don't want to hold a two-handed mace. Well, in addition to being based on weapon damage, we also use the weapon's speed to determine your casting speed. So if you use like a wand or a fast dagger, then you'll actually cast faster as well. Talk a little bit about the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor lover over here. One of the questions we get also is about mana. People have noticed that in the beta, mana seems to be unlimited. This, in the beta, is absolutely true. The mana gameplay that we want, mana is the only resource that's returning from Diablo 2. So what we're doing with it is we're providing multiple mechanisms for the Witch Doctor to recover mana. In this case, one of those would be passives. There's a number of passives that have to do with mana regeneration. There's also runes, and some of the runes will help out with mana regeneration or making some of the skills cheaper to cast. And then there is items. You get mana regeneration and items. The goal here is that players will choose a mix of different avenues to supplement their mana regeneration. So one Witch Doctor might decide to use a number of skill runes as their source of mana regeneration. Others might rely on gear. Another might take passives. Some Witch Doctors might actually do all three and go way overboard. Now the question is, will that Witch Doctor who just puts everything into mana recovery have unlimited mana? And the answer is actually yes, because we want lots of customizable builds. The Witch Doctor who decides they don't want to have to mess around with mana and overloads on it will probably sacrifice some offensive ability or utility to do so, but will at least get to play in a way that's fun for them. Unfortunately, a lot of this play isn't really evident in the beta. The passives just start to kick in at level 10, a lot of the gear doesn't have a lot of mana regeneration on it yet, and the skill runes aren't in yet, so you won't see any of that. So from level 1 to 10, before any of this gameplay really kicks in, we basically make mana unlimited and free, because the player hasn't been given the tools to overcome a shortage of mana yet. We're going to talk about the passives. We talked about Fetish Sycophants earlier. Another new passive on the Witch Doctor is called Circle of Life. Circle of Life makes it so that whenever an enemy near you dies, it automatically summons a zombie dog. And what's really cool about that is you don't even have to have the zombie dog skill trained. If you have the passive Circle of Life and an enemy dies, and there's a chance that the zombie dog comes out. If you take the zombie dog skill, then you get to add runes, and the passive will benefit from that as well. This particular Witch Doctor in the video took both Circle of Life and Fetish Sycophants. So using only 2 passive skills, she actually has quite a big pet army with her. Moving on to the Monk. One big concern in the beta is survivability of the Monk. We've been working on, particularly during the early levels. During our internal testing, we actually find the Monk has a lot of good survivability later in the game, but that's only when a lot of the skills have unlocked. Early on, Monks were having a hard time. So we've been doing very targeted, focused changes on certain of early combo skills. A bit of knockback on the 3rd hit now. Long reach is slightly longer in its reach. All these sorts of things are just kind of micro adjustments that help improve the survivability of the Monk. The other area that we've been looking at is mantras. A lot of players understand that the fundamental concept is that it's a buff that's on yourself and others. But there wasn't any really good decision point as to when you were going to push the button. So for the first 3 seconds after pushing, activating your mantra, the effect of the mantra is actually doubled. So for example, if you have a mantra that increases the damage taken by all enemies near you, at the time that you push the button, now the effect of that mantra is doubled, and you can actually unleash some of your high cooldown powers, 7-sided strikes, stuff like that. And finally, we've been taking a hard look at combo attacks, spirit generators. Like I said, we use those terms interchangeably. In this case, we had some players who said they just want to have one spirit generator and they want to spam it all the time. And then we have other players who say, well, actually, I really like the idea of combining the two. And so that's been kind of a delicate balance, trying to support both styles. I mentioned the passive earlier. So we've been really looking at changing the timing, changing the structure, to basically make it possible to combine them, but not mandatory. And finally, with the Demon Hunter, for those of you who don't know, the Demon Hunter is based around a dual resource system of both hatred and discipline. Hatred is an offensive resource, and discipline is a tactical resource. We're moving over to a system of using both hatred generators and hatred spenders. The idea is that really in the beta, you're always out of hatred. You're like shooting, you use up all your hatred, and then all of a sudden now you have to use your normal attack again. And that just wasn't very fun. So now we've divided up all the hatred skills. Some of them generate hatred. Those tend to be more utility-oriented skills or plinking skills. And then we have hatred spenders. These tend to be your big bombs or have extremely strong effects. Another area that we've been looking at for the Demon Hunter is snares. The Demon Hunter is a ranged class, and we really wanted to make sure the Demon Hunter had tools to keep enemies at range. We considered adding additional root, and we've used that in small amounts, but we didn't want to give the Demon Hunter too much stun. That's not really part of her kit. So in this case, we've strengthened all of her snares. Just like a couple percentage points, but it actually makes a huge difference, and when you're actually playing, you can really keep those enemies at bay. Finally, we've been cranking up the awesome on all of the classes. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we're really happy with the mechanic and how something's playing out. Maybe we like the mechanics and the numbers of how our skill works, but for whatever reason, it's not delivering on the visceral fantasy. And so we've been working a lot with our technical art department to basically amp up the visuals, amp up the feel, amp up the effects, so that the skill still functions mechanically the way we want, but has a lot more appeal.
Are you guys ready to talk about awesome? You want to hear about awesome? That's all I care about.
Awesome is awesome.
Let's get these words off the screen. Oh, it's more words. Okay, so kick-ass gameplay is more than just a great idea or a great mechanic. Really, to be pushed in the stratosphere of pure awesome takes a synthesis of the two. So today I'm going to walk you guys through a mausoleum of ideas that didn't quite make the cut and the things we've done to give them a spark. First up is the monk. So one of the cool things that came out of our brainstorming sessions was we wanted the monk to incorporate some kind of temple aesthetic into his skills. And we prototyped something here which is pretty awesome. It's basically the monk summons a huge temple and collapses it on his enemies, which is totally sweet. I think it's sweet. But it has some gameplay issues. It's too confusing. Each pillar requires a click. It takes up a lot of visual space on the screen, so we simplified it. Here we go. I'm gonna cast it on a spider. Oh, there it is. All right, so basically it explodes automatically. It's a lot easier to play, simpler to use, easier to understand. Doesn't take up as much space, but still kind of gets through some of that temple aesthetic that we were going for. So next up is the Demon Hunter. We knew that we wanted some kind of companion for the Demon Hunter, and there's a lot of ideas about what that could be. You know, a raven, which I think is the unruined version of the skill, is definitely one of them. Maybe a wolf. But we also tried some crazier ideas, like a floating skull. I don't know. Whose skull is that? It's friggin' huge. I guess he bites enemies. That's a bit magical. It doesn't really seem to work. We also tried a floating sword. I love floating swords. They're awesome. But on a Demon Hunter, it doesn't really seem to work. You know, it's kind of more arcane. I could see a wizard having a floating sword that floats around and like smashes enemies. So we replaced it. We went with something a little more basic, a little bit more corporeal. We went with like a bat. I guess he bites enemies and like sucks their blood for you or something. I mean, it's pretty sweet. It's got some shadow stuff on him too, so it's a little bit more in the physical realm. It's something I would expect a Demon Hunter to have following him around, slaying the allies of hell. We also gave him something a little cute. I love these little guys. Oh, little ferrets. That's awesome. I'm gonna call that one Bitey. I love ferrets. So some ideas are just awesome right off the bat. They go in the game, they're totally sweet, and you don't really have to do much to them. This is called Call of the Ancients, which summons the Ancients from Diablo 2 to come in and slay enemies on the battlefield for you. You love it, right? I love it too. When I first joined the project, Julian Love described it to me, and I was so excited to flip my desk over. Pencils and everything are just going everywhere. So, love this skill. You know, it's not just hero skills that need to be awesome, it's also monsters. I mean, monsters have got to be awesome, so you feel more awesome for slaying them. So, first up is the Goatman Shaman. Picture here, you're going to kind of see that he has a lightning shield, which he casts on himself, and when you hit him when he has a lightning shield on, it does damage to you, it returns damage. It's a great mechanic, it's a great idea, but if a shaman could really only do one thing, what would he do? When I imagine myself as a shaman, I think, fury of the elements, savage, bestial, chaotic, smothering my enemies in an avalanche of frost, consigned to an icy grave. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, hit him with the frost. Oh, you died. It's an upgrade, it's more awesome, I don't know. All right, so another monster we have, this guy shows up in Act 2. He's a rockworm. He's definitely not not inspired by a desert-themed sci-fi universe at all. So get that idea out of your heads. Don't even think about it. So this is our first implementation, which is pretty cool. He has a cool intro, but he's kind of like a lot of other monsters we have. So we wanted to spice it up. So now what he does, still bursts out of the ground, but if you're unlucky enough, he's actually going to catch you and eat you. Yeah, spits you out. That's what I'm talking about. That gets my blood boiling. All right, GG guys, that's all I got.
Ow. All right. So we've talked about, some skills. We've talked about some items. We've talked about the auction house. Let's talk about all the stuff that's going to kill you. So there's 4 difficulty levels in Diablo 3. Normal, Nightmare, Hell, and Inferno. You progress through those in a kind of linear order. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these. Well, more about Normal and then more about Inferno. So Normal. This is really the beginning of the game. It's Act 1 is kind of our tutorial. One of the things that at Blizzard is our general philosophies is we don't like kind of standalone tutorials very much. We don't like, showing up and having like somebody show up and give you a wall of text that you have to read. We just want you to go kill stuff. We want you to learn how to play the game by playing it. So as a result, kind of the early part of Act 1 is pretty easy. So monsters have really low awareness. They're not very aggressive. They won't really kind of attack you very, very kind of seriously. They don't attack very fast. They have a tendency to stand around. They're a little ADD. They have really, really limited abilities, especially in Act 1. Like, it's really uncommon to see even a ranged monster in the first act. So each act is really designed to layer on more challenges. And we literally kind of bucketed all our monsters into different categories, like ranged and kind of proximity AoE and distance AoE and area denial and all these different abilities that they can do. And then we kind of gave them a rank score of what we thought was most difficult and kind of progressed those through all the difficulties. So in the later acts, you get into kind of more responsive monsters that are much more aggressive, much faster, and also have a whole bunch of new abilities that they come after you with. Oh. Who put that there?
What does it mean?
So, yes, what does it mean? It wasn't a double, though. It was just a single. It doesn't mean anything. This is the feedback we get. Normal's too easy. We get this from the beta feedback. We get this internally. I have people come to me every day and say, yeah, we know, it's early in the game. It's supposed to be easy. But you don't understand, dude. It's way too easy. I remember Diablo 2, and Diablo 2 was not this easy. You're wrong. This is Diablo 2. Yeah. I think she's going to get hit in a second. Oh, no, he missed. Oh, she got hit. Okay. Oh, she took some damage. I think she's going to be okay, though. So, this is on purpose. Because early on, I know we're awesome. We're great at games. And because of that, if you're hardcore like we are, this stuff's too easy for you. But it doesn't really matter because, those of you who are in the beta, you're kind of trapped in the really low, kind of easy content. But you're going to blow past this so quick and get into the other difficulties. And, we're going to talk about that a little today. Our challenge as game developers is to try and make the game approachable for casual players, but still interesting for serious gamers, and build a game that's got depth. There's a really important point here. Hardcore games for everyone is what Blizzard does. It's what we've always done. So one of the things that people say to us is the game feels really, really easy in the early game. Are you just making the game for casual players now? And we say, no, we're making the early game for casual players because we want to turn them into hardcore players. And because we do that is why we have so many wonderful people here today. And that's what we're going to keep doing. Thank you. That being said, I'm sure some of you are going, yeah, but come on, is it really hard? Like, how hard is it? It's not really hard, is it? You got soft. It's not that hard. Well, you're not going to believe anything I say. I'm going to be like, yeah, it's super hard, whatever. So one of the things we asked some of the guys on the team to do, we got a whole bunch of people on the team who are playing the harder difficulties now, and we've asked them to, do a little bit of a testimonial so you guys can see how hard the game really is.
So you've got normal difficulty, you've got Nightmare, Hell, and Inferno.
Normal mode was pretty casual. It was very fun, you know, you're one-clicking, you know, having laughs. Once you get into like Nightmare mode, it starts kind of turning into all business. Like, whoa, 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 like that thing just killed me. The game really starts, for me anyway, at Nightmare.
Once you go into Hell difficulty, it starts getting really hard. And then you beat that, and you thought that was hard, and then you get to Inferno, and you just have a whole new set of challenges.
That first rare monster pack is basically going to own you.
You really have to watch your defensive stats, and at the same time you're trying to build up your magic find, and it's hard because you have to, it's a fine balance.
You're going to really need to use your gems and your enchants to really boost up your defense just to survive and not get one-shotted.
Sometimes just the AoE damage will almost kill you instantly.
The whole thing is about surviving. You're not going to do any good to anybody dead.
When you just rush into a boss in Nightmare and above, they will kill you so quick.
Man, the biggest drop I want is gold. We spent so much money on repairs.
A group of us probably spent a good hour wiping on a single boss.
But you really got to play as a team in the later difficulties.
The way the game's tuned right now, people have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
People of the world, you've played this much of normal, which is this much of farming level. When you get to Nightmare and Hell and Inferno, you will get your asses kicked, we promise.
I don't know what's doing that. I'm doing it somehow. Power of my mind, I guess. So higher difficulties, what are those all about? What are we going to do there? How are they going to be different than the normal difficulty? And that's what I'm going to tell you. So Nightmare, Hell, Inferno, these are our higher difficulties. A lot of the things we focus on in these higher difficulties is things that we can do to add depth to the game. So new item affixes. So one of the things that we found is that the Diablo item system is pretty dense. It's a pretty hardcore system. And so we've actually decided to go ahead and pull a lot of the item affixes that say don't matter that much in normal difficulty and just push them to the higher difficulties and not even bother in normal. I mean, a lot of you probably remember Diablo 2 and you'd get, you know, resistance items gear in normal difficulty and you didn't even care because resistance is in normal difficulty. It's not that hard to stay alive in normal. So those are the kinds of affixes that we pushed up. And by pushing those kind of out of normal difficulty, what we do is we introduce new attributes in higher difficulties, which adds a lot of depth to how you build your character and really increases the item game. So one of the other things we do is focus a lot on rares and champions. Rares and champions are basically randomized monsters. We can take kind of any monster in the game and then we have a bunch of different powers that we give to them that get kind of randomly assigned. So, well, I think I went too fast. So rares and champions early in the game, they've got kind of 2 powers in normal difficulty. In Nightmare, they can get up to 3 powers, and in Hell and Inferno, they can get up to 4 powers. And we also have a whole bunch of powers that don't even start showing up till you get past normal difficulty. And a lot of these powers really introduce new mechanics. So, and this is probably the best example when people ask us how much have you really built the game for the higher difficulties. 70% of the items in the game don't even show up until past normal difficulty. So these are some examples of just some of the high-end gear that you can get in some of the higher difficulties. So Inferno, this is our new difficulty that we announced a few months back. It's basically a maximum level difficulty. Once you reach maximum level, you can go to Inferno, and it's meant to be content that's always challenging, that you can never truly out-level. So we get this question all the time, can I solo Inferno? And the answer is yes, you can solo Inferno. And the reason for that is that we've always viewed Diablo as a cooperative game for fun. We don't require you to do cooperative play to get into the content. And I'll get into why in a little bit. We're also doing multiple tiers of items in Inferno. So tiers is really kind of a term that's not typically used with Diablo games, but it's more of a WoW term, but it's kind of an easy kind of transfer of ideas. Essentially, there's multiple tiers of items that appear in Inferno that are increasingly more rare. So the idea is once you get into Inferno, that first tier of new items you'll start seeing more regularly, but that second and final tier are much, much harder to get. And so it really increases the depth of the item game at that level. So, and rares and champions are really going to be the best loot in the game. And one of the things that we're trying to avoid in Diablo 3 is boss runs were fun in Diablo 2, but they got monotonous after a while. So we're really trying to find ways to get you to focus on randomized content as the way to get the best loot. And this is going to be an ongoing problem, something we're going to continue to look at even after Diablo 3 ships, because we do think that there's going to be some optimal paths within the game, but those are things that we want to fix so that it's really fun to kind of go and do a broad array of content to get the best loot. So, and then your kind of excess loot and gold, it's all going to get funneled back into crafting and item enhancing, which we talked about earlier. So, and crazy builds. So this is one of the big things that we want people to do, not just throughout the game, but definitely in Inferno. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. What does crazy builds mean? Well, WoW really focuses on optimal builds, making the absolute best character that you can make. But Diablo has no guild to answer to, no raids, and no roles to perfect. And these are important facts to kind of realize about Diablo because it changes the nature of how you play the Diablo game. For us, Diablo's co-op is optional. It's something for fun. And our point here is that when people talk to us, they talk to us all the time and they'll say, I did the math, and it seems like if you take this ability with a two-hander, that's like the best combination. If you ever take that ability, you're always going to take a two-hander forever. And we say, well, yeah, probably, but if you take this other ability, you'll dual wield, and that's okay. Both builds are viable. And so a lot of the times people will talk to us about optimal builds, and we'll turn around and say, yeah, there might be some optimal builds, but we're really interested in all the viable builds that are out there. So here's an example. People ask all the time, can you make a petless witch doctor? And absolutely you can make a petless witch doctor. Here's a petless witch doctor. I think this is hell difficulty, like late. Essentially, Witch Doctor uses a series of high defense attributes as well as Grasp of the Dead and Spirit Walk. These are really defensive abilities to be able to make a build that just doesn't need to use pets. This is kind of an unusual build for a Witch Doctor, but it's completely viable. So here's my favorite, Melee Wizard. I like to hit things. It's a personal flaw or strength, depending on your view on hitting things. The wizard basically can do this by using a lot of kind of up-close AoE abilities, some really strong defensive abilities like Diamond Skin, to essentially make a character that can be up-close and personal. And that's, again, not a common build for a wizard, but a viable one. So why? Why viable over optimal? Why are we even talking about this? So Diablo has tons and tons of customization. We did the math on the new skill systems with the combination of passives and runes. And we threw a crazy number out a few years back of like 69 billion. We're really more in the area of 2.8 trillion. Yeah, trillion builds. So that's a lot of builds. And why? Why so many builds? Because customization is self-expression. And if you have to build a character to be perfectly optimized, that's not really going to allow you to customize that character. So our job is to make sure that, yeah, while there might be some best builds, there's tons and tons of viable ones. It's totally okay for there to be best builds. It's totally okay for someone to go, you know what, I made this barbarian and he's got like 0.5% more damage than any other build you can possibly make. And you know what, there's nothing wrong with that. Unless that number becomes, oh, this barbarian's like 50% more powerful. So if we can get enough builds into that range of these are all viable, they can play at the max level, it means you can play the character you want to play at max level and not be beholden to anyone. So what we say is go out, have fun, be free, and make the Diablo character you want to make. All right, so we're almost done here. A little bit of beta feedback. We really wanted to show how your feedback has directly impacted the development of Diablo 3. So there's way too many examples to kind of come up with of the ways that the feedback we've gotten from all of you has made the game better. So we just kind of picked some top 3. So the first one's a skill system. This is becoming more and more common. Watching people play basically while their skill system UI is sitting open. And why? Because we let them swap out whenever they want. And we thought that was cool because we wanted people to experiment with their builds, but what we didn't want was for people to literally actively in combat be switching skills in and out. It's just not a fun experience. We allow that in combat, and it's not fun. And the other thing we don't like about it is it makes you feel less committed to your build. You don't feel like you have a character build. You just feel like you have this UI for skill swapping that you're constantly using. So our solution is we're focusing on trying to do an in-town swap. So we're going to have an item that you're going to go to in town that is required so you can swap. And you can go to that and swap it whenever you want, but once you leave town, you're restricted and your build is locked. So we've got this implemented internally right now. It's probably going to go out in the next patch of the beta. We're not sure about it. It's better in some ways. In some ways, it kind of sucks to lose the freedom of being able to swap anywhere. But we feel like if we keep iterating on it, it can probably work. But if it doesn't, our alternate solution is going to be to focus on something more like an out of combat kind of system. It's funny, this idea of being in and out of combat is very much a World of Warcraft idea that doesn't translate really easily to Diablo because our combat pace is much faster. But it's still something we probably could fall back on if the in-town thing doesn't work. So followers. Followers are an awesome feature that we announced a little while ago. Characters that can follow you throughout the world and help you, and you can customize. One of the things we decided was that they weren't really going to be viable past normal difficulty. And we did that because we really saw them as more of a single-player feature, more of a story feature. The thing is, we got a lot of feedback that many of you didn't like this. Matter of fact, a whole lot of you didn't like it. So we changed our minds. So followers are now going to be in-game viable, so you'll be able to use them to customize your build and bring them with you out in the world. So this is a fun one. We posted our items up on the Blizzard website a while ago, and a lot of that stuff is really temp, so take it with a grain of salt. Like, we're really still very much in itemization's one of the kind of last things you get kind of hardcore on. So a lot of that stuff is temp, but you know, this is one of them, the Ring of the Zodiac. We posted up this data, and that's what was up there, and everyone's like, WTF, that's not a Ring of the Zodiac. We played Diablo 2, we know what a Ring of the Zodiac is, and that ain't it. So, fixed. So, thank you. We'll try and keep on. Anything we bring back, we'll be a little better about that. All right. So we don't have a lot of time for questions. I want to let you all know that tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the panels discussion stage, we have a lore panel. They're going to be showing some new environments and talking about a lot of new story stuff and some factions. So if you have a chance to go to it, I definitely recommend it. Also, at 11:30, we're going to be back on the main stage for a full hour of Q&A. So if you don't get your question asked today, please come back tomorrow at 11:30. Thank you.
I don't know. Where are you going? Come back here. There you go. I think we only have time for one, is what the thing in my ear is telling me. So this gentleman stepped up.
So Chad's the villain. He's the reason we can only have one question.
No. My name is Jay. Here we go.
Are the amount of free postings for cash items on the auction house going to be limited by a day-to-day basis, weekly or monthly?
It's going to be weekly. We don't know exactly how many we're going to do, but it should be enough to be able to do a good amount every week, and then it'll refresh on a day that someone who is not me will choose.
Thank you. All right, guys, I'm sorry. That's it. Thanks for coming out.